To the Jaron Sustar Show, coming to you live from Anderson, South Carolina. This is where we teach you how to manage your money and build financial freedom through investing in real estate, all while continuing to work your job, raise your family, and live your busy life. I'm your host, Jaron Sustar, and I personally want to thank you guys for joining in today. And if you couldn't hear the beginning of that intro, it's because I didn't have my mic pulled up, but now I do. It's a fantastic Tuesday. And today I want to chat with you guys about how to find deals in today's market. I think it's important to know where to go to find real estate deals. And a lot of people struggle with this. They're not sure which way to go. There's a lot of different ways that you can go to get deals. There's a lot of different avenues. And I think it overwhelms a lot of folks. And so my goal is to break it down and make it very, very simple for you guys. So my personal real estate goal this year, there's a couple of them, but my big one is I want to buy 50 units. Okay. 50 units. That's kind of baseline. And I'm looking, and today is Tuesday, January 28th. And I may by February, the end of February, have 24, 26 units under my belt off of deals that I'm working right now. And so I want to tell you kind of the stories of the deals that I'm working right now and how I found them so that you can go and do the same thing. And then I want to tell you about some other ways that you can find deals as well that you can put to your repertoire to go and crush it. Now, if you guys haven't already, there is an opportunity to download mine and Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad's free ebook that we have together. If you're watching live, you can scan the QR code that's in the top of this screen. If you are listening on podcast, you can go down to the show notes. There's a link in the show notes, whether it's on YouTube or any podcast platform, and download that ebook because it's going to cover a lot of the things that I talk about today. Literally, I had the opportunity to do this with one of the greatest educators in the personal finance and real estate space, Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. And we've got you guys a fantastic ebook. It's completely free. So again, go down to the show notes, grab that. But there's 3 deals that I'm working on right now. So we got a 9-unit portfolio that we're working. We have a 15-unit portfolio that we're working, and we have a duplex that we're working. Okay. And just in case anybody's brand new and doesn't know what that means, there is an investor who owns 9 houses. They're looking to sell all 9. By the time I get off this live, it will be under contract. There's an investor that has 15, a different investor, they have 15 houses. They're looking to sell that entire portfolio together. They don't want to piece them off. And then there's an investor who owns a duplex and he's interested in selling. And so the way that I came across each of these 3 deals is totally different. And if I'm able to land all of them, it's going to give me 26 units, and I'll have that before the end of the first quarter of 2025. And so I want to stop right there and say, everybody and anybody who says that you can't buy real estate right now, there's not good deals, you don't know what you're talking about, because I am living proof that there's tons of them out there, and there are tons of people doing this right now. So I want to encourage you guys, if you're brand new and you're not sure, you've heard all the bad news about real estate, you're always going to hear bad news about real estate because people that don't do it are jealous of people that do it, and they make it seem like this far-fetched idea. But they're wrong. It's a fantastic time to buy. I am more excited about buying in 2025. You guys are going to hear me say this over and over this year because the market has softened. So we hit a huge run back in 21 and 22. The market was hot as crap. Things were selling within 3 to 5 days. We're not there anymore. That is fantastic for investors. This is the time where you go gobble up. Why do you think that I set a goal? I've never bought 50 units in a year, ever. I just haven't. I haven't needed to. I haven't wanted to. But there is such a good opportunity right now that I know, now that I've been doing this for going on a decade, if I don't capitalize as much as possible this year, I'm going to look back in 5 years and I'm going to say, dang it, I really had a really good opportunity in 2025 and 2026. I wish I would have bought more. And so I am literally going and buying as much stuff as I possibly can over the next 2 years because the market is ripe for real estate investors. So I got these 3 deals. You got the 9-unit, the 15-unit, and then we've got the duplex that we're going to talk about. Let's talk about the 9-unit deal first, okay? So when we look at how do we find deals, this deal came from a broker, okay? So there's a brokerage company. It is an outfit of people who they go and try to find deals, oftentimes for investors. Not all the time is it for investors. They're finding deals that they can list as well. But many times these broker companies that work with investors, they will be able to find a lot of off-market deals. So they'll do the cold calling, they'll try to find investors who are interested in selling, and then they'll find that investor who's interested in selling, and they will either list the property for them, or they'll go and they'll find buyers who'd be interested in buying it off market so they don't have to actually list the property. Okay. And so they'll do this for a number of reasons. If you're the seller, number one is the seller, a lot of times of these investment properties, especially if we're looking at like what I'm looking at, a portfolio of single family homes, they haven't been kept in the greatest shape. So he knows if he wants to get top dollar, he's going to have to kick all the tenants out. Right. So you got to go through that whole process. You got to wait till the lease is in. Then you got to spend a lot of money to fix these properties up. Then you got to list them. You got to wait for them to sell. And so this could be a year and a half or more project if they were to go fix the properties up and then sell them at retail. So instead, these brokers convince the sellers to, hey, let us just sell it to another investor. It doesn't really take much convincing because the investor knows he don't want to do all the work that needs to be done to get top dollar. So he says, you know what, I'll just sell it as is to another investor. I bought it at a discount, time did its thing, and went up in value. Tenants paid down my debt. I'm still going to make a really good profit, and it's an easy transaction for me. Guys, these types of transactions happen all day, every day. That's how a lot of investors deal with their properties, especially these portfolio owners. They don't go flipping their entire portfolio when they're ready to sell at the end. They sell it as is, which allows other investors to potentially, not all the time, potentially get a good opportunity. And so that's what happened with this 9-unit portfolio that we got sent by a broker. Now, how did I find the broker? Well, through networking. It's through picking up the phone and calling brokers, building a relationship, saying, hey, I'm an investor in this area. I'm looking for these types of properties. Will you send me them every time you get them? And then you get on these brokers lists and they start calling you and texting you or emailing you every time they have deals coming up that meet your criteria. I love buying like this because it's very little sweat equity on my end. They're doing all the work. The brokerage company pays for the cold callers, it pays for the people to go and find the deals, and then I'm just sitting there analyzing it, and I decide if I want it or not. And it doesn't take a lot of sweat equity to build these relationships. It just takes you picking up the phone, going for breakfast, hopping on a Zoom call, chatting with them on the phone, let them know what your plans are, and then nurturing that relationship as time goes on. And if you do that, you can get a lot of deals brought to you. And so this deal was brought to me probably 5 days ago. And originally, when they brought it to me, they said, we think the seller's going to want about $800,000. We're still figuring out what he wants. I said, okay, well, send me the deal and I'll run numbers. Then they come back and they say, you know, we talked with him. He wants to be around 675K. I said, okay, thanks. And I still hadn't done my due diligence. So I sit down and I go through these properties and we figure out what the ARV is. So what is the after repair value? And then we figure out what they were going to rent for. Okay. So how I found the ARV is I went on Zillow. This isn't rocket science. I found homes that had sold recently in the area of these homes, and I found out what they were selling for a price per square foot. Okay. So it's very easy, right? If I'm looking at if he has, you know, let's say 6 of these properties I'm buying are 3-bed, 2-bath, then I found 3-bed, 2-baths in that area that have recently sold, that have been fixed up, and that told me what the 3-bed, 2-baths that I'm buying from him are going to be worth once they're fixed up, right? And same thing for 3-bed, 1-bath, 2-bed, 1-bath. We go through the whole thing and we run our comps to figure out, okay, for each individual property in this portfolio, let's figure out what the ARV is going to be. Then we had to figure out what are the rents going to be. Okay, ARV is great for knowing what it's going to be worth, whether we do a refi on the back end or whether we sell it. But in the mid and short, mid, maybe long term, we got to know what can we get for for these properties and rent. Are we going to cash flow? We do not want to buy a property or a portfolio that doesn't make money. And so what I did is I went to our property manager and I sent them the list of the 9 homes and I said, hey, can you tell me what you think these will rent for? And it was that simple. So when they sent me over the package for these deals, it already told me what the existing rents were, but I wanted to see where could we raise these in the future. And it was literally a simple email, copied and paste the 9 units that the sellers agent had sent it to my property manager, and they texted me back and they said, for each property, here's what we think you can get if they stay the same. Here's what we think they can get if you fix them up a little bit, or here's what we think you can get if we make it if you make it top end. And so I literally got 3 different prices from my property manager. All it took was an email from me. Okay, so now I know what these properties are going to be worth after I fix them up. Now I know what I can get for rent based on how we fix them up. Now I just went through and figured out, okay, if they're going to be worth this and they're going to rent for this, I need to get it at this. And so homeboy started at 800, dropped it to really wanting 675. When we ran our numbers, we felt very comfortable that if we could get this deal at $540,000, that would be a win for us. Okay. $540,000 would be a win for us. Now that's a good ways off of where we started. They thought they wanted 800. Then they really, settled it. Okay, we'll be realistic. We'll do it at 675. Well, now we're coming in. We're offering, what is that, 135 whatever thousand less than what they're wanting. And I think there's a lesson in that. Too often at times, new investors and sometimes seasoned investors who just forget their way, I guess, look at what somebody is asking for a property, see that it's not where they need the numbers to be, and then they just pass it. They pass up on it, and they don't do anything to go and try and make the deal happen. I want to encourage you guys, when you find a deal that you like, run your numbers, figure out what you need to buy the property at for it to make sense to you. And there's tons of videos I've got, if you go up and down my channel on YouTube or my podcast, teach you how to analyze deals. That's not what this episode's about today. But once you run your numbers, then you shoot your shot and you make your offer based on what your numbers tell you. I don't care if it's $200,000 less than what they're asking. I don't care if it's $1 million less than what they're asking. If you want something, you show them what the offer is and why you offered it. I literally sent these guys, I said, hey, we got to buy it at 540. Here's why. We only think the ARVs are here. We think the rents are only going to be here. We can get them to here. And if we buy it too high, could we still make some money? Potentially, but we give ourselves too much risk. If they're willing to part with it at this way, at this price, we'll definitely do it, because we know it's going to leave us a spread for equity, and it's going to give us strong cash flow off the get-go without touching rents. And then when we raise rents, it's going to be a very, very strong, stabilized portfolio. Sent that over to the broker. They sent it to the seller. You know what the seller came back and said? He said, well, that's in the ballpark of what we want, but we'd like to get a little bit more cash to take home. And so I said, okay. They didn't give, is there a number? And, the guy I'm working with is like, they didn't give me a number. I said, well, mine's 540. Can you tell them to counter? Like, tell them I really need to be there. If they want to bump it to 550 to make them feel better, we'll do that. And so sure enough, they came back and they countered at 10,000 more at 550. And I took the deal, because I'm not going to lose a deal over $10,000. And we're talking about a $500,000 deal that I think we can make worth probably, let's see, 9 units. We can make it worth over $1 million. I think we can make this portfolio today, if we fixed them up, worth what's the math on that? Let's see, 120,000, we'll do the 125,000 times 9. Yeah, this would be 1.1 to $1.2 million today, and we're getting at 550. So we're not going to miss a deal on a couple $10,000. So super excited about that. But the whole point is, it came from a broker. Okay. And so having those relationships and building those relationships with brokers, or just investor friendly agents. So it doesn't even have to be a whole brokerage. You can just find agents who they work for the brokerage, and they are investor friendly. They go and they help investors find deals. They understand what you're looking for. They know they're not going to bring you $1 million house that would only rent for $1,000 a month, right? That wouldn't make sense. And so they understand the game, and they're finding deals for you. The second deal that I'm working on right now is a duplex. And as soon as I get off this call, I will go and I will send this offer. It's a gentleman in California who owns the property, and the property is actually in South Carolina. And what I did is I went on Deal Machine and I pulled a list of out of state LLC owners. Okay. Out of state LLC owners. And I think it was either like They've owned it for 5+ years. They have a certain amount of equity in it. Okay. If you guys want to know exactly, message me and I'll look up exactly the list I pulled. But the main thing was I was targeting LLC owners that lived out of state. And so I was doing this through mailers. So what I did is I went on Deal Machine and I pulled a list of those people. When I say pull a list, you can type that information. You can say, hey, I want the contact information of all the LLC investor owners who live out of the state but own here in this little town that I'm interested in buying. It gives you the whole contact list for it. And then what I did is I said, I want to send mailers to each of these every 30 days, asking them if they will sell their property to me. Well, one of the guys, he lives in California, got my mailer about his property that he owns in South Carolina. And he messaged me and he said, hey, dude, I got your mailer. Are you a wholesaler or are you an investor? That was the first question he asked. He did not want to deal with a wholesaler. A wholesaler is somebody who buys real estate, puts it under contract, and then goes and sells the contract to another investor. A lot of times the deals can fall through because the wholesaler may put it under contract and then they can't get an end buyer. So then the guy who was going to sell to the wholesaler, now it can't sell it because the wholesaler didn't find anybody to buy it to. So he wanted to make sure I was an end buyer. I proved to him that I was an end buyer. Said, hey man, no, I flip. We buy ourselves. And a lot of times if we're flipping, we'll do cash. I said, if not, I'll work with a small local bank and we'll get the deal done. And he said, okay, make me an offer. So we drove by, we looked at the place. We didn't get to see inside in person yet, but he had updated pictures from his listing it for rent on Zillow. And so we were able to look at those pictures, drive by, run some comps. And we found that if we buy this property at $90K with current rents, okay, buying it at $90K puts us at a little bit over $100 a month in cash flow. And we're at like a 6% cash on cash return if we did 20% down. Well, we started digging and we said, okay, we think as is, this property is worth $120,000. I'm getting it for 90. Okay. He agreed to do it for 90. So if we do $120,000 times 80%, that gives us 96 grand. So a bank would lend you 80% of an appraised value. Okay. So if we got $120,000 property, it's worth 120. That means the bank will lend us 96,000. The annoying part is a lot of these banks, and I'm getting in the weeds here, but hang with me. This stuff is like nitty gritty. This is nitty gritty deal stuff. And so if you don't want to hear the top level stuff and you want to hear the nitty gritty when you're in the middle of these big deals, how my brain's been working. I didn't sleep hardly a wink last night because I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to get these deals done. These banks, they have to lend off of either the appraised value or the purchase price, whichever is smaller. Okay. So oftentimes I can find a deal where the appraised value is more than the purchase price because I'm getting them at such a good deal, but the bank won't lend me off the appraised value because then I could get into a deal without having to put any money in. And there was a bank who used to do that for me back in the day. If I found a deal that was worth more than what I was purchasing it for, they would factor that equity that I had built in through finding an undervalued deal into my down payment. And so I would get to the closing table and I wouldn't have to put any money down because I'd have so much equity and they'd lend me off the appraised value. Well, a lot of banks, they don't do that anymore. And so they're going to go off the purchase price. So although that house, this duplex that I'm looking at is worth 120, they're saying your purchase price is 90. We're only going to lend you 80% off the 90. So what we will do instead, okay, is we will go and we will buy this property. Now, this is assuming due diligence comes back and everything's good. Everything checks out on the inspection, which I really think it will after talking to this investor. I think it's going to be a really good property. But barring anything catastrophic, we will buy this property at $90K with cash. All right. Then I will go to a bank and I'll do what's called a cash out refinance. And I just talked to the bank yesterday. I was like, hey, I'm buying this for 90. Excuse me. But it's worth 120. Can you just lend me off the 120 so I don't have to do two closings, buy it with cash, and then come to you and do a cash out refinance? And she was like, I'm so sorry. That would make so much sense if we could. But unfortunately, if you go directly through me on the original purchase, I can only lend off that purchase price of 90. I said, okay, so if I go buy it in cash with 90 and then come to you 2 weeks later, you can do a cash out refinance, and whatever the appraised value is, you'll give me 80% off of that. She said 100%. I said, I think that's kind of asinine that we have to do it that way. She's like, I agree. she's like, but we'll do it. I said, there's no seasoning period. Like after I buy it with cash for 90K, I don't have to hold on to it for a month, 2 months, 3 months. She said, no, we don't care about that. She's like, you come to me as soon as you close it, and then we can go and we can do a cash out refinance. If you think it's worth 120, and we can go and pull your capital out. Right. And so the one thing you have to be careful on that is working with an appraiser, because if an appraiser sees that you just purchased it for 90, he may question, hey, why do you think it's now worth 120? He may want to see some upgrades. So you either need to show upgrades, or what we'll do is we'll go in with receipts of 2 to 3 comparable properties that have sold for 120K. And when the inspector goes out to my property, or excuse me, the appraiser goes out to my property to appraise it, I will text him, say, hey, I bought this at a discount from an investor, but we bought this because we feel as though right now it's worth 120. Here's why I think that. And I'll send him those 3 comps in a text. So I'll make it really hard for him to argue and say, oh, it's not. Yeah, it's not worth 120. It's only worth 90. You're screwed. Right. And you wouldn't be screwed. If that's the case, I would just go refi all 80% of the 90K, and it'd be just like we bought it with 20% down. We'd be at a 6% cash on cash return, with a 100 and something bucks of cash flow. We think we can up each side by at least another 100. So increase that by 200 bucks a month. That puts us at close to 300 bucks a month in cash flow, which would jump our cash on cash return to, I think, 16 or 21%. I ran the numbers yesterday. And so still a strong deal, but you want to leave yourself a lot of outs. And that's where, especially when you start working a lot of deals and you're doing big deals and portfolios, you want to play every scenario. You want to play best case scenario. You want to play worst case scenario. You want to play buying with 20% down and being able to refi your money back. You want to play the scenario of buying in cash, refining your money back, 20% down and having leave money in the deal, buying in cash, thinking you're going to refi your capital out, but you don't get a high enough appraisal. What are you going to do then? And so I think a lot of people will get into these deals and they'll just assume whatever they want to do is going to happen exactly like they plan it. And sometimes and oftentimes that doesn't work. And so really sitting down and looking at these deals from every possible angle is going to allow you to, number one, make the best decision and buy it the right way, but it's also going to mitigate risk. And so we know that real estate as an asset produces wealth. It's not a secret. When you own real estate, it produces wealth because it goes up in value over time. You get cash flow, tax benefits, all this good stuff. So our job, one of our big jobs, is how do we mitigate that risk while it is producing that wealth for us? And you do that by being very, very diligent on the front end and doing your due diligence. Each of these deals that I'm telling you about, we have a due diligence period of 14 days or 10 to 14 days to where we can go in, inspect every property to the bone, and we can get out of the deal if we find anything funky. All right. And so we're very cautious with how we approach these. And it's allowed me to have a lot of success over the years in doing it the right way without, knock on wood, screw myself. Right. And so, and then you get to the conversation of, how we can actually fund these deals. Can I use my cash, the 90K? I can, or I can raise somebody else's on that $500,000 deal. If we think it's worth 1.2 fixed up today, I could go make a couple phone calls. I could raise the $550,000 I need to close, plus raise another $250,000 to rehab each of those properties. Now I'm all in at 750. It's worth 1.25. Right. Bank's going to give me 80% of that. That's a 1 million. I take that 1 million, pay the 750 back that I borrowed to buy and rehab that portfolio. Now I have $250,000 left over in my pocket because the bank gave us $1 million. We paid 750 back. $250,000 goes to me. Now I have $1 million loan, and the rents are $12,000 a month. Right. So I'm just throwing examples of scenarios that I'll run through my mind. I mean, I could literally walk away with $250,000 in my pocket, plus have 9 properties, plus cash flow. Or maybe it's not that much. Maybe I need to leave more capital in the deal so that my cash flow is higher every month. So maybe I only get $100,000 back. Anybody listening to this live or on podcast excited about buying a portfolio of 9 units with somebody else's money, doing a refinance through the bank, paying yourself $100,000, and then still having the assets there that are cash flowing you every month while tenants pay that new debt off and it goes up in value over time? This is where wealth is built, doing deals like this. and they come from different sources. So we've talked about the broker, we've talked about the mailer that I sent to a dude in California who we're about to do a deal. The third portfolio and the third deal we're working on is a property that I found on Zillow Properties. So this 9-unit portfolio is in a certain area, the one I talked about earlier in South Carolina. I was looking for comps in that area, as I told you. Well, when I did, I saw that there was like 15 homes listed in that area, and they're all around a similar price point. And usually when you see that, it's owned by the same person. And so I looked, and sure enough, all these properties are owned by the same person. And so it's listed on MLS, shows me who the realtor is. I call the realtor yesterday. Hey, can you give me the scoop on this? Yeah, it's owned by some investors. She said they were trying to fix them up over time. Remember, I told you guys earlier, they have to wait till a property goes vacant before they can fix it up. It's just a big pain. She's like, they just want to sell it as is, get it off their books. They need some capital. They bought them at a really big discount, 5 years ago. They need capital for another project. I said, okay, here's the deal. They were wanting 1.4 for these 15 properties. Now, mind you, in the same area, same type of condition, I just bought 9, or I'm going under contract on 9 for 550. So there's a big disconnect. One project, the 9 units, we're getting under contract for, call it 61,000 a door. These guys with the 15 units were wanting them for 95,000 a door. Well, we're not, there's no meat on that bone, right? That's a good way. That's how people go bust, is doing that. And so how I'm working this deal is I'm sitting down with the realtor, and I said, listen, I'm going under contract on 9 in literally the exact same neighborhood. I said, well, we got a little bit of disconnect, and I used some verbiage to be respectful. I said, I understand that your sellers are wanting 95 per door roughly. But what I said next, I think will help me with the negotiation. It's just these small details. I said, I believe it would be irresponsible for my partners and I to pay $95,000 a door, because we do not believe that's what they're worth today. And we don't want to put ourselves in a position to be hurt financially. And so I set it up like that was a very Southern, it's like the Southern way of saying, bless your heart. It's essentially, bless your heart. I was kind of saying, I think your pricing's stupid is what I wanted to say, but that's not how you win deals. And then I followed up with, I'm buying 9 units in the same area, and we're getting them for about $60,000 a door, and they're all rented. I said, you have 6 that are vacant, and 3 of them are in really bad shape. And so I would actually price those at less than 60K per door. And so when I put 6 of yours at 45K per door or 40 per door, and the other 9 at 60 per door, I think a fair offer for us to make would be $810,000 for the portfolio. And so she said, okay, thank you for giving me that information. She said, can you send me the addresses of the houses that you're buying so I can go to work for you to get my sellers to see the discrepancy? So she's representing them, but she wants to get the deal done. And so if I'm another investor buying in the same area saying, hey, we're off by 35K a door or more, she is going to recognize that. And hopefully because she may have sellers who are like, oh, we just listed close to 100K per door. That's what we want to get. That's probably what they were doing. And she may have been like, there's no way we're going to get this, but I'll have to do it because they want me to. And so now she can go back and be like, hey, you got an investor who's interested, but this is where he's buying these other units at. He'll take it off your hands today. And so it's $600,000 less than what they're wanting. I mean, it's listed on Zillow, $600,000 less than what they're wanting, but it's also $500,000 more than what they paid. And so I'm able to look and say, okay, there's still profit there for them. I know they fixed some properties up over time, so they have more than, $350,000 in the deal, but they're still got good profit on the bone. I'll take it as is, get it off their hands, and it'll be a good deal for me and good deal for them. But that came from literally running comps from another property that I'd originally got, of the 9-unit portfolio, which leads me to, when I am looking for deals, once I find an area where I'm pursuing something, then I kind of attack that entire area very strongly. So, I found those 9-unit deals. through that 9-unit deal through a broker. Well, then I started running comps and I found these other deals on Zillow. Well, now I'm going to attack that area big time. I'm going to go and I'm going to pull up Deal Machine. I'm going to look for any other owners that own in that neighborhood that live out of town or out of state. I'm going to drive through and I'm going to find all the vacant properties, and I'm going to send mailers, and I'm going to use Deal Machine to call those owners and say, hey, I saw your property's vacant. Would you be interested in selling to me? And I'm going to really, really, really attack that area, because if I can control an area, then I can control what the homes are worth. So if I go in, even with this deal I'm working with the 9-unit and the 15-unit, and I can control 24 properties in a neighborhood, I can start setting what that neighborhood is worth. And you step that up over time. You increase the appraised value of homes, then you can build more wealth for yourself over time. And then you can also help with rents. You can control how the homes look in there. There's just a lot of good things about buying these package portfolios. So when I go in, I want to go and try and gather as many of those properties as possible, so that we can decide what that area is going to do moving forward. And so I would encourage you guys, really spread out the avenues that you get deals from. I showed you 3 examples here, one from a broker or an investor friendly agent, one from MLS, right, or Zillow, and then another from mailers. And with mailers could come you could do the same thing. When I mail, you pick up the phone and call too. So like, I'll use Deal Machine. I will go and I will send mailers to homes, right, that I drive by that are vacant, that are ugly, whatever the case may be. But I also will dial and I'll say, hey, my name's Jaron. I'm looking to buy your property. No, didn't know if you're interested in selling, right? They either answer, I leave a voicemail, I'll text them. And then I'll start setting up reoccurring follow-ups to continue to have that dialogue with them until I finally get them to pull the trigger. I keep the mailers going until they answer my phone and we have a conversation, until they call me, right? And so really expanding how you get deals. And I would pull that out. I gave you the 3 examples, the brokers, the MLS, and then the mailers and cold calling. But I would also add to that list wholesalers. You want to be on every wholesaler's list in your area and look at every deal that they have coming through. And then I would encourage you to network, meeting with other investors, going to local meetups. You'll find a ton of deals that way. And then broadcasting that you invest in real estate. So ever so often, probably 6 to 8 times a year, I will post on my personal Facebook, hey, we're looking to buy houses in this area. If you know anybody who's interested in selling, please let us know. We buy all cash, as is, no closing costs, no realtors, all the good stuff. We list it out, and I get usually 3 to 4 leads from that every single time. We're in the middle of a flip right now from a lead that I got from that. And then I have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with a gentleman. I made this post. His neighbor is a friend of mine on Facebook. I've known her. She knew that he is out of his house and it's vacant. It's getting run down. She texted me and said, hey, my neighbor's house is vacant. It's getting run down. Would you be interested in purchasing it? I said, yes, send me the address. She said, great. And then she ended up sending me his contact information. He's coming into town tomorrow. We're going to look at it. Hopefully we can get a deal done. And so we just have all these different avenues going. And the beautiful thing is these things are inexpensive. Most of them are free. The only thing that would cost money is sending mailers. And you can send mailers through Deal Machine for 62 cents a piece. And so if we send 200 mailers, I don't even know what the math on that is. What, 100 and something bucks? A month, 100 times 12. So you spend $1,500 a month or a year on mailers. You close one deal. The average profit of a flip in the US is $30K. ROI on that's pretty good. The rest of it is free. It's just you networking, calling investor friendly agents and brokers, getting on wholesalers lists, driving around, picking up the phone, calling people. And I would encourage you guys to get these avenues up and running, because I truly believe that this year is going to be one of the best. This in 2026, one of the best years for real estate that we've seen in recent history. It got very expensive there for a while, mixed with high interest rates. It was hard to find deals. The market has softened. Deals are becoming more plentiful. Investors are selling deals. You can get larger portfolios, and it is a fantastic time to buy. So make sure you have those leads coming in. At minimum, analyze one deal a day, make one offer a week. At minimum, analyze one deal a day, make one offer a week. I don't care if the offer is in left field. If they're wanting, like this example, $800K and you offer $540, do it, because at some point you're going to strike gold. Somebody's going to say yes. You don't always know what the other person is going through on the other side, why they may need to sell, why they're willing to take a lower price, if they are at all. You don't know unless you ask. And I'll tell you, asking with an offer is a very strong way of asking compared to just, hey, do you think you would take this amount? No, give them an offer. Hey, I will buy this cash or hard money or whatever, use the bank from you right now at this price. This is why I have to buy it here. My numbers tell me, but I'll buy it. Do you want to do a deal or not? If they say yes, great, do the deal. If they say no, then you keep an eye on that property and you watch it start sitting 30 days, 60 days, pop back. Hey, just following up, still ready to take your property at X price if you guys want to sell it. Maybe they say yes, maybe they don't. You watch it for 90 days. You watch it for 120 days. You watch it for 150. You watch it and you continue popping in every month. You want to sell it, you want to sell it, you want to sell it, and you follow up on that thing until you land it or until they get the property sold to somebody else. And if you're tenacious about this, you can build a very strong portfolio very, 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 very fast. You can do a lot of flips and create a lot of income for yourself very, very, very quickly. And I want all you guys to do that this year. Take what I just taught. I know I told a lot of stories today and ramble, but there's a lot of, I guess, the intricate details that I don't always tell. For whatever reason, just get called on different topics of how to run these deals, how to find them, how to process them. Take this, go put it into action in your target market. And I'm excited to see you guys have success. Hey, thank you for tuning in to the Jaron Sustar Show today. Again, snag the free ebook if you haven't already. There's a link down in the show notes. It's by me and Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We're going to walk you guys through how to buy your first or next investment property. And then if you would, leave me a 5-star rating if you're listening on podcast. It would be I'd be so grateful, forever grateful. And like this video and share it with somebody if you're watching on YouTube. It helps get the message out. And I think a lot of people need to hear this. Guys, thank you so much. I'll see you next time.